I am back once again with a large book haul about the same size as before. Um, I hadn't intended to really get this many books. Um, an equal amount of new and used books. There was a local used book sale at this bookstore that I don't usually go, but I had just happened to go on that day. And there was this charity event where there was a whole bunch of boxes of used books, and the idea is you take as many as you please and then donate to the charity hosting the event. So I had my fill there, and there were a lot of gems there. Actually, there's a lot of interesting finds. So I'll just get right into it. The first one I have here is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I haven't read anything from the Bronte girls, so this will be my first introduction, and I hear a lot of great things about Jane Eyre. I believe Wuthering Heights is by Emily Bronte. I've heard great things about that as well, but I would wager that either I would begin with Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights, and I just so happened to find this, so I just figured I might as well get it and pick it up. The next thing I have is actually a collection of a singular author who seemed to be very preferred in some particular person's collection, who I believe must have been a literature student, because she donated a lot of the classic literature that I picked up. She had some literary textbooks and things like that. So she had a huge collection here of John Steinbeck, all short stories and novellas. I have here Tortilla Flat, and I just like to note, look at these older book covers. They're really striking. They really paint a great picture. Whereas, let me get something that I want to show later. Something like this, Demons by Dostoevsky. I personally find the cover very underwhelming. Not exactly the style I would prefer for something like this. If I didn't know what this was, I wouldn't have reached for it on the cover alone. It seems very... I don't know the story exactly. I have a vague picture of what I have read about it in my head, but this doesn't really compel me to get an idea or pick it up. However, Tortilla Flat, I think, creates a sort of picturesque or image of these downtrodden workers, and I don't know anything about it, but it gives you a sort of atmosphere before you even begin to read it, and I really appreciate that in these older books. And here's another example of Mice and Men here. I actually haven't read Of Mice and Men. I haven't read East of Eden either. I know I actually must read East of Eden probably urgently, but I do want to read Of Mice and Men, and this is another one that I want to read. This is The Pearl. Here, this is particularly a tearjerker, quite sad, but it's really super short. You could probably read all of these books in a day. Here's another one, The Moon is Down, and there's a little bookmark here that the previous owner had used. But yeah, all of these books are from the same donator, and they're annotated, and they're actually in really bad shape. They've seen better days. They're kind of worse for wear. This one is a particularly bad example. This is probably the worst of them. This is Travels with Charlie. I think this is more autobiographical by Steinbeck. He travels America with his friend Charlie. I believe he also has another travel book of his where he travels to Russia. I would have preferred to get that one, but it wasn't available, unfortunately. It was not. This previous owner was not interested in that, I guess. Here's another one. The Long Valley. I don't know much about The Long Valley, and then this is the last novella, The Red Pony. This one seems to be particularly popular. Again, I haven't really heard much of it. Super short. These will be quick reads. I'm just very happy because I am a short story enthusiast, a novella enthusiast. I love a quick read. I wouldn't say that I'm not trained for longer reads. It's just I and I suppose this is probably the case for most people, it's not as easy to follow along, and it requires an higher amount of investment. And oftentimes I'm reading things, even things that I really enjoy reading, there'll be moments where I'm less and less engaged on certain plots, or just the main plot in general, where things go, and it just, not everything appeals to everyone, so there are times where the plot lulls, and it's hard to become re-engaged and force yourself to read through it, but at times you actually just must. And with short stories, you really don't suffer for those very often. At least that I found. Even short stories that I didn't enjoy very much, I had no issue reading through them. Speaking of short stories, here is a collection of, I believe it's Gustave Flaubert, Three Tales, the same author of Madame Bovary. This is really short. Penguin's Classic Short Stories. I wonder if I actually have this in my big black box of Penguin Classics short stories. But the next is J.D. Salinger's 9 Stories. I'd read Catcher in the Rye when I was a teenager, not for school, but my class didn't assign it. I knew other classes did, and I was curious because I heard a lot of mixed things. I've heard from people who don't like to read that it's their favorite book and they couldn't put it down, and I've heard from people who like to read that it's the worst thing they ever read. Well, I've heard the same thing from people who like to read, that they quite liked it, and also they hated it. But the thing that really compelled me is that the people who I knew hated reading, some of them really liked Catcher in the Rye, and they really just devoured it. I started reading it. I never finished it. Maybe I got through the first 2 chapters. I see the appeal. I imagine J.D. Salinger doesn't really like that through all his works, because that Catcher in the Rye is very particular, but I'll be interested to see how he writes in these 9 stories and what he has to say there. The next book I have is To Kill a Mockingbird, another classic high school assignment book that I'd never read. Same thing, I hear a lot of great things. I think I just have to read this. There's another book that I'm thinking of that reminds me of this guy who's like in an asylum. The One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Maybe that's what it's called. Maybe I'm conflating them with one another because of the birds, but whatever. I always get the plot of To Kill a Mockingbird confused with that, because I know I think To Kill a Mockingbird is about a lawyer who represents someone who's innocent, but a lot of people in the court of public opinion assume that he's guilty. Or maybe I'm thinking of something else, but I mean, I'll figure it out eventually when I get to this book. But yeah, an essential in Southern literature, I imagine, which I do love. Speaking of which, I might as well present this one. Faulkner's The Unvanquished. I purchased a collection of 3 Faulkner stories. I believe they must be by the same publisher, because the format looks the same on the side. It included As I Lay Dying, Sound of the Fury. Oh no, it didn't. It didn't include The Sound of the Fury. It included As I Lay Dying and 2 other of his books that I really can't name, and I won't be bothered to turn around and look. So, but this is another Faulkner that I don't have, and I'm slowly collecting more and more of his works. There must be someone where I live who likes Faulkner a lot, so I'm always finding Faulkner in used bookstores, and this used bookstore, this bookstore is retail store, but in the sale, I mean. So I have plenty of Faulkner to read through. And for another American classic, I have, this is a collection of excerpts from Hemingway's most famous stories, such as Farewell to Arms, Old Man in the Sea. It has the whole of The Sun Also Rises. I believe that takes up the bulk of this book. I've already read Old Man in the Sea, Sun Also Rises. I wasn't really impressed with The Sun Also Rises. I read Old Man in the Sea a while ago. I enjoyed it more, I think, but it's been so long, I can't really remember. I think The Sun Also Rises is one of those things where you can appreciate it when you read it at a certain time in your life. When I had read it, I don't think I was really at that point, and it really didn't capture me. I thought it was interesting more than anything. There were some interesting scenes, but on the topic of this book, I'm sort of doubting why I picked this up, because I don't want to read excerpts from stories which I haven't read the full of, such as Farewell to Arms. I'd rather just read the full of Farewell to Arms. And I'd already read I already have a copy of The Sun Also Rises. I already read The Old Man and the Sea. And most of the rest of the things I haven't read from here are just excerpts from larger works. So, I don't know. Hemingway, I like Hemingway enough. I wouldn't say he's my favorite author, but I mean, it's a nice look. I thought it was analytical at first, but then I read through it and I was like, that's excerpts. What do I do? I don't know. I picked it up. I almost regret picking it up. I hate to say it, but I almost have. If I had to sacrifice probably any book in my library, this might be the first go. But I'm holding on to it for now. I have places to put it. I don't know if I'll read through it. I really don't know what I'm going to do with it. But the rest, I have two Ivan Turgenev purchases from eBay. Before I get into that, though, I found this diamond in a pile of beat up used books in the last place I would have suspected to find it. And that is And Quiet Flows the Dawn. I have been wanting this book for so long and deliberating on which of the two translations I might get. There are two translators. I have heard it said that they have not translated all full 4 volumes completely. This one is Stephen. God, what is his name? Stephen Gary. He has 4 parts in this. I don't know how large the original is. I'll have to double check. I think this is the full story, I'm assuming. I mean, either way, I'm going to read through it. But Stephen Gary, and there was another translator. I think it's Michael something. I don't remember his name. I believe one of them has a Russian wife, so people say that his translation is more reliable for that reason. But there's also the argument that Gary or one of the lone translators themselves are better because they rely on their own resource, I guess. Anyway, I'm just excited to have found this. I nearly leaped. I jumped for joy when I found this. There are some annotations in this, which I usually adore. But these annotations are the sort that I don't really are not to my liking. They begin sort of right over the chapter. They have these summaries of each chapter. Not really a fan of that. I don't see the point of annotating in that way. I mean, you can just read the chapter. I think it's better that way. I guess if it aids you, but I don't see the point of writing that in the book itself. Probably you can just get a separate notebook or something. I don't know. But that's my own. I don't know why I'm critiquing this. I'm absolutely elated to have found this, but that was one thing that I think there's a thing about annotating that deserves some in-depth conversation, because all of these, I wouldn't say all of these, but many of these books include annotations. In fact, I have some more before I get into the books I purchased from eBay. I have some more analytical and larger works here. This is a biography on Ulysses S. Grant by Ron Chernow. You may recognize this author. He wrote biographies for Alexander Hamilton and George Washington. I believe he wrote quite a bit more, in fact, but he's most known for his Alexander Hamilton biography because that is what was the source for the musical Hamilton. I don't know much about his merits as a writer. I know there's a lot of these popular American authors like Dave McCullough, Ron Chernow, Who else? I'm sure there's a bunch I'm thinking of who make biographies of. This is not, I guess this is not early foundational America, but, like 19 or 1776 by David McCullough is like this huge mammoth and very popular among at least the novice American history enthusiasts. I used to have a copy. I never really read through it too much. Maybe the first couple of chapters. So I don't really know their merits. That sort of is kind of the beast with history authors and biographers. You sort of don't know what you're getting into until you get into it, especially these more contemporary works. So we'll see. I'm interested. I also think the sleeve is just awesome. I usually hate book sleeves and keep them and tear them off immediately, but I'm keeping this one. And this next one, speaking of David McCullough, I don't know how to say his name. I have his John Adams biography, and I'm excited to get into this one. I think John Adams is a very interesting figure. Also this cover is just so cool. I'm not a John Adams enthusiast exactly, but early American history is just so interesting, and the founding fathers are just these pillars of secular, all-around individuals with a lot of interesting, like take Thomas Jefferson for example. Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin. These are all really interesting characters with their hands in different pots. So John Adams is among them, and I do like his wife. God, why am I blanking on the name? I'm not even going to try it, but I'm excited to have found these. There was actually the Alexander Hamilton biography by Ron Chernow in the collection. I don't know why I didn't get it. I probably should have. I do think he is an interesting individual. More interesting than the others, probably. Probably not Ulysses. Probably more interesting than John Adams, to be fair. But I don't know. Maybe I felt like I'd seen the inspiratory work of the Alexander Hamilton biography. I saw the musical. Well, not in person, but I've read the music and I've seen performances. I thought the music was good. I thought the story was interesting. That's as far as I went with it, especially the duel. I love a good duel. Anyway, I probably should have picked that up. There's also this literature text from the very same John Steinbeck short story collector, previous owner. I know this because her name is written all over these books. Like sort of like a student might for high school, write your name in a textbook or something, like in the corner of the cover. I'm not going to show it. Who cares? No one really, but I don't know. I might as well make some attempt at privacy for this person. So I've pretty much absconded with all of their books, which I'm sure is not true. They probably have a huge collection of much more preferred works than these. I'm trying to find these. There are some pages where they're annotated to hell. In a great way. Unfortunately, I can't really find them. I'm sure I'm going to be looking through this whole thing. It's a mammoth of a book. It's a textbook, I think. I don't know, for college or high school. Literature and Introduction to Fiction, Poetry, and Drama, 6th edition. I was reading through it. It looks really interesting. It's nothing special. It's just a textbook, but really cool either way. Okay. And then, speaking of mammoths, The Companion to Southern Literature. I've never quite seen a book like this. A companion to the Southern literature. Sorry. I didn't know what to expect from this, but it's sort of like a glossary of Southern American literature. Highlights, I guess. I'll give you an example. C here is, the third letter in the alphabet, and you have subtopics here with like Cajun for the Cajun. What might you say? It's not. It's sort of a subculture, I guess, of American Southerners. I believe primarily in the Louisiana, New Orleans area, and there's also Cajun literature. If you go to A, the first category there is abolition, and then there's also just sections with authors, important works, important periods of time. As an enthusiast of Southern literature, sorry, it's difficult for me to say quickly. I was so happy to see this. I love Southern literature. I think, especially Southern Gothic, of course. As a Faulkner enthusiast, one of my favorite books from Faulkner is the Southern Gothic core work, and I typically enjoy the themes of Southern Gothic literature. Not only that, but I think Southern literature in general really shows the beauties and the horrors of America that we see the echoes of today. I think it's honestly more essential to understanding American culture than sort of the Northwestern, maybe literary renaissance of Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Edgar Allan Poe. I think, of course, they have their place, but honestly, culturally, I think Southern literature is unparalleled. You really see all these things in just our modern society, the way that Americans think, the American spirit, both East and West, beyond the Southern boundaries. It just really holds a unique spirit. I've said enough, really. I've gone on about this a bit too long. Okay, let's... Into the Russian literature. I have Fathers and Sons, the Penguins Classic Edition, with this gorgeous painting, which is by... Let me see. It is Portrait of the Artist's Son by Andre Victor Edouard de Vambez. I think it's just stunning and perhaps exemplary of the themes of Father and Sons. And this is the kind of cover that I love. I really like Penguin Classics because they sort of give you the essence with images when they do have these sort of portrait covers. And I love the interplay between the art and the story. I just really like it. I mean, I just like to just look at this, and it's so cool. It's so cool. I plan on reading this next month, pretty much immediately. I'm almost finished with Master and Margarita. I've been sitting on it for a while. I could probably finish it today, but I just might not. Anyway, getting into this as soon as I can. And I'm really looking forward to it because I love Turnigev's short stories. And speaking of which, I have his collection of short stories, which really put his name on the map. A Sportsman's Notebook. This also has an alternative title, I believe. It's called The Hunter's Sketchbook. But yeah, Sportsman is like hunting for sport. So I believe the idea is that either Turnigev or this narrator has gone through the Russian countryside looking for game and sports, favorable areas for game. And this is sort of a collection of his accounts in that journey. And the beautiful Kazian of the Beautiful Lands is where this comes from. So I'll be looking forward to reading this as well. Sort of one of those things I think you just nip at gradually. I'm not in much of a rush to complete it, but Father and Sons is something I really want to get through. Okay, so that's all the used books. I have a lot of new books that I purchased from some retail stores, and I'll just get into them in no particular order. I also have a collection of a certain author whose books that I bought new and used. But I just have so many of that author in particular's works that I figured I just might do them all in one go. This I had already shown, Demons by Dostoevsky. I'd made a plan to complete either Demons or Brothers Karamazov by the end of this year. And I would prefer to finish Demons, not because I'm scared of Brothers Karamazov, because it's massive, but this has something to do with it. I think the themes of Demons is something that appeal to me right now, I should say. Honestly, I would like to read The Idiot and the Gambler as well. Like, if I would really, really like to read those two. But for some reason, Demons just seems to call to me, and I just had to get it. And usually I don't buy things at retail, especially things like Dostoevsky or like classics or anything, but there's of course a lot of these things I had bought are classics, and mostly I picked some of them up because the prices were fair, and not really much beyond that. Like, they weren't calling to me immediately, but then I would see them, I'd recognize the name, and be like, oh, okay, how much is this? And then, flip it over. Oh, okay, it's not horrible. I could afford to add this. The next work I have is Infinite Jest, which is another huge one. And I'm sort of puzzled as to what to do with this, because I really do want to read this, but I don't know where I can fit it in. I might fit it in... I mean, it looks sort of summery. Maybe I'll fit it in this summer, and if I'm getting tired of reading Russian literature, I can read something more modern, more American, postmodern. I don't know. We'll see. I think I'll get to this when I get to this, and I hope to get to this by this year. Yeah, we'll see. Another thing I would like to read is Gravity's Rainbow. I was kind of looking for that after I saw this, but I unfortunately wasn't able to find it. If I had seen that and picked that up, I would have gotten to that much sooner, much more urgently. Here's another one, Brothers Karamazov. I've talked about this already. What is there to say, really? I mean, well, there is something to say. One, I would like to say this. I don't know why they went for the vertical... it's a big book, right? I don't know why they chose to make it... size it up vertically rather than width-wise. I don't sort of like these tall books, especially paperback tall books. I feel like you can just tear this little thing in half. Considering the paper is quite thin. I'm not a fan of this cover either. I sort of picked this up because I saw Demons and I saw this beside it, and I felt like almost cosmic. But yeah, I'm sure I could have gotten a much more charming editions of these books, but I picked them up anyway. I liked... this is the PNV translation. I liked their Crime and Punishment translation enough. I definitely preferred it to Constance Garnett, but I suppose that's not really much of a comparison. There's not a lot of competition there. Michael Katz, I don't know a thing about this man or his translation. Unfortunately, I hope it's good. This cover does not leave me feeling very optimistic, but I just think it's kind of a shame for a cover for a work like this. It's okay, like, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and bemoan the cover. I'm just going to keep going. But anyway, I don't know what they do with these modern covers. Anyway, I have this, the Penguins Classics book. I don't really... It's a catalog of Penguins Classics. Covers, editions, publishings, short little histories and synopsis of classics that they've printed from all over the world, from early human history, from Russia to Japan, to America, to England, to France. Very, very cool little book, and I mean, it just looks stunning. You have the little penguin here, and you have, what else we have? The ship from the Odyssey, Genie Lamp from 1001 Nights, in Arabia, I believe it's called, or Arabian Nights. A flower here, maybe a little bit of Elizabethan England. What else? We have the Celtic Knots. We have this little thing here. I think this is supposed to be the Russian Imperial Eagle here with the scepter and I don't know, whatever the hell else he's holding. A little bit of a drama mask. I just think this is so cool, and it makes quite the piece in the bookshelf. I usually don't buy these sort of ornamental pieces, but I really do like Penguin's Classics, and I do like their covers. I wish you went into a bit of the actual history of what is published, how it's decided what's published, that sort of thing, but it doesn't really. It's more of a, I guess you can kind of call this, look at this. You can kind of call this a coffee table book. It's very cool. Didn't anticipate to pick this up, and I was just called to it and told that, you should add this. It looks nice, and I don't know. I like it. I like the penguins. What can I say? I like the little penguin. Speaking of Penguin's Classics, we have another. Here we have the Canterbury Tales by by Chaucer. I'm so excited to read this. I want to read this right away. I don't think I will, but my idea is this. I want to read the Canterbury Tales. I know Hyperion is inspired by is a space age Canterbury Tales, right? That's pretty much the idea of Hyperion. I really want to read Hyperion because I haven't gotten into sci-fi lately, and I've kind of been missing that. I love sci-fi. Some of my favorite books are sci-fi. Sci-fi and horror are my guilty pleasures, and I really want to get to Hyperion. I know it's touted as a masterpiece, and a lot of people will say otherwise, but I think if you're a contemporary sci-fi enthusiast, you ought to read it. I do also have the two following books from Hyperion by the same author. Well, sorry, I don't know why I said that. Yes, of course it's by the same author. He wrote all three books. Perhaps there's more than three, but I have the two following books for Hyperion. I don't actually have Hyperion, and it sort of worked out that way from a long story, but I won't get into it. That's a different topic. Anyway, I'm so glad I found this. The price was really good. The cover's so cool. Of course, it's a Penguin's Classic. They can do no wrong in my eyes, really. Okay. And another quick one. The Nutcracker by E.T.A. Hoffman. This was a really cheap little thing. It's really tiny, kind of ugly, I think. And this is beautiful, but I mean the blue. I mean, come on, it's really awful. I don't know why they do that. Christmas classic. I love watching the Nutcracker ballet every Christmas. When I saw this, I feel like I ought to have just picked it up. It's just kind of another way to appreciate the Nutcracker. Who doesn't love the Nutcracker? Anyway, next. A Midsummer Night's Dream, Folger's Shakespeare Library. I have a bunch of Folger's Shakespeare books. This is another one to add to the collection. One of his, I wouldn't say, no, I do think it's his later works, considered among the masterpieces. Really tiny, and I like the dreaminess of it. I might actually find a midsummer occasion, pick this up and finish it. So yeah, I mean, again, one of those things where I saw this, the price was right, and I had to pick it up because I knew where it would fit in my bookcase, my bookshelf. Next I have the Selected Poems of Robert Frost Illustrated Edition, which has this beautiful little, I suppose this is hatching illustration on the cover. I love Robert Frost. I love a good Robert Frost poem. The natural imagery that he evokes. I mean, I feel like it's just essential American poetry. Yeah, I'm not really seeking illustrative editions, things to make the bookshelf look nice. I'm not always looking for that. I mean, but it's nice when you find something that sort of fits into that mold. It makes things look a little bit neater. But my bookshelf is a mess anyway, so maybe it just makes it sort of brings out the chaos and the horrible damage of my other books. But I'm happy to have a collection of Robert Frost at the very least. I feel like it's kind of hard to find poetry collections in contemporary retail bookstores. It just is like I'm always looking for the poetry section, and it's a lot of nothing. It's almost always very small, and a collection of things you may already have. The next thing I have is the selected works of Jack London, who I know him from Call of the Wild, and this is just another illustration on the inside of the cover. It's really pretty. I know him from Call of the Wild, which I read a long time ago, I think in middle school. But I do have good recollections of that story, and I look forward to rereading it and reading his other works. I mean, also, just a nice looking book. This is really cool. It's a little... I mean, it's just a nice little book. The price was good, too. The price was good. And another nice looking book with a decent price. Actually, I've already read these stories, but anyway. The Odyssey, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Just in time for Nolan, but I'm not going to read it again for Nolan. These both contained I believe it's Samuel Beckett, I believe, translations. They're like the quintessential open source old British translations. Samuel Butler. Some people say they're kind of verbose and chunky, but I kind of like that style. I would not prefer a simpler translation because I don't really like to read too much of simple prose, despite enjoying Faulkner and a little bit of Ernest Hemingway, but I would almost critique... Well, I won't go there. Anyway, I think this is an essential to anyone's collection if you're reading a lot of Western literature, especially classics. You ought to really have a copy of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And I do have Ulysses. I feel like to have Ulysses without a copy of the Odyssey is sort of strange. So I saw that it was nice. I had both Odyssey and Iliad. I picked it up. It's a nice looking book. Okay. The last collection of books, and I'll try to make this quick because I've been here prattling on about whatever nonsense has been in my head. I bought a collection, not a collection, I've bought several works by Vladimir Nabokov on eBay. I bought a Vladimir Nabokov from the used book sale, and I bought a Vladimir Nabokov from a retail store. So I've been hunting for Nabokov for a while, and I continue to do so until I have his full collection, because I've never been the same since Pale Fire. That book has really changed me. And I had read Lolita as a teenager, and I was really struck by the prose and the storytelling and the themes and the humor. I just think that... I don't know why there's this, and I think it's slowly being dispelled. And now that I'm seeing this thing, everyone says, oh, he's misunderstood. I think he is becoming understood very, very clearly, and people, this idea that Nabokov is misunderstood is becoming the idea that these people who misunderstand Nabokov don't really know Nabokov at all and haven't really read Nabokov. I don't see a Nabokov reader, at least in my experience, who has read Nabokov and misinterpreted him in the way that is often described. Like we see the things like when we're talking about Lolita, that there's this glorification of sexualization of young girls, which is absolutely not the case in the story, quite the opposite. There's a vilification of a certain individual who is so completely deluded and nefarious and malicious that he destroys innocence in its most forward sense. That's, I think, what most people get when they read Lolita. I don't think people get this idea of whatever. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I have this book of his lectures on literature. There's a sleeve for this. It's horribly battered. This is not in the best condition. I mean, it's weathered, and there's, I believe, some just water stains all over the pages. I love it. I love it so much. I would not trade this book for anything in the world. Well, maybe one other thing, but I'll get to that later. Okay, but that Lectures of Literature book is really, it includes his, he taught at Berkeley. I believe these are his Berkeley lectures that he meant to publish before he died, but he never actually was able to do so. These lectures and his notes, there's pictures of his notes in, you know what, let me just, pictures of his notes within, and then explanations on the idea of what they're saying, and excerpts of books where he makes a pointed critique, and these are all compiled by a friend of his who compiled his lectures and his draft for the lecture published, the subsequent publication. And he basically had completed it for Nabokov, for his lectures on literature. He has Jane Austen's, what is it called? It's like Mulberry Place or something. I'm not a fan of Austen, but I can appreciate those. Mansfield Park, thank you. They have, and there's Dickinson's Bleak House. There's Madame Bovary, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I was surprised to find that, by the way. I didn't realize it was really so esteemed. Proust, The Walk by Swan's Place, The Metamorphosis by Kafka, and lastly, James Joyce, Ulysses, which I'll be happy to dig into once I finish Ulysses this year. Next, I already brought this up, Lolita. This was, if you can believe it, look at this condition, by the way, absolutely pristine, untouched. This was in a used book sale. I don't know who would have parted with this. You couldn't pay me enough to sell this book. I love this book. Written so beautifully, so absurdly beautiful, and that's Nabokov at his essence. Like it. Anyway, let's get to the next one. I have here Speak Memory, which is Nabokov's autobiographical or memoir. I don't know too much details. I don't want to get into it until I start reading it, and I might just end up reading this last of all of his works. I think maybe I also read it first, but the thing is this, right? I want to read the work before I read about the author for a few reasons. One, because I do know some things about Nabokov, in essence, not from him himself, but just his life on black and white, the very basic facts. And I don't want to read his work and presuppose things that I may not conclude by themselves in isolation to him as a writer. And then once I learn more about his experience, maybe reread things, and because he does reward the rereader, I guess you can say, and adds little clues, little layered moments in his work where you may have missed him in the first reading, or can appreciate something you've already read before once you read it again. So I do plan to reread most of his works. I anticipate that I plan to reread most of his works, and once I've read them once, go into the biography and emerge with more knowledge. Anyway, next there is Invitation to a Beheading. I believe this was written originally in Russian, and his son Dmitri translated the Russian into English. That's my understanding. It's a short little novel. I think you can finish this really quickly. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this. I think the title itself is very eye-catching. That's kind of why I bought it. I was like, oh, this is Invitation to a Beheading. How grotesque, how absurd, how just fun. It's just fun. Next is Mary. I want to get into this so bad, but I'm patiently waiting. I don't, unfortunately, plan to read Nabokov next month. If I have room, I will, but I'm still behind because I haven't finished Dracula yet. That's going into, what is it now? January, February? And I started that in October. I just haven't touched it, so I don't know if I'll have room for Mary, but I do plan on reading that very quickly. I think that's probably my next Nabokov is Mary. Next I have stories by Vladimir Nabokov. There are a lot of short stories in here, some longer stories. It's quite a thick book, and full of a bunch of different titles. And subsequently, there was another title, Natasha, that was added to this collection not too long ago before publishing it. This edition includes the newly discovered Natasha. So that's really cool. I don't know. I'm really excited. Another one of those things, like the Sportsman's Sketchbook, where you kind of can just, if you're bored and you don't want to get invested in something so long form, you can just pick up one of these and just start reading wherever. Which I really like. And the last thing, and my favorite, is the Lectures on Russian Literature. Oh man, I was so excited to get this at a good price. It's used, it's all beat up. I mean, it's annotated. We have the pictures here of his notebook. Oh man. I was freaking out when I got this delivered. Let me show you what is included, what books, what stories, what authors that Vladimir Nabokov studies in his lectures. So we have, you cannot see it. Oh, you can, a little bit. What is there? It's Dead Souls by Gogol, Father and Sons by Turgenev. A lot of Dostoevsky here. We have The Idiot, The Possessed. I believe The Possessed is also Demons. It goes by several titles. I think it goes by Devils, Demons, The Possessed, whatever. Memoirs from a Mole House. What is that? What is that? Mouse Hole. Memoirs from a Mouse Hole. That must be Notes from the Underground. Certainly. Hold on. How did I miss that the first time I opened this? Memoirs from a Mouse Hole. That's gotta be Notes from the Underground. Certainly. Memoirs from Under the Floor. It is. Very cool, very cool. The Idiot, The Possessed. We have Tolstoy, Death of Ivan Ilyich, and Anna Karenina. Oh my god, it's written so strangely. It says Anna Karenin. Is that correct? Hold on, I have a copy behind me. Anna Karenina. Anyway, I don't know. And then there's Chekhov, there's The Lady with the Little Dog. I believe Nabokov says that's the best short story ever written. I'll have to go through his lectures on that because I've read it and I like it. It's actually really good. There's also In the Gully. I believe it's another short story. And then his notes on The Seagull, which is, I think that's like Chekhov's magnum opus in terms of screenplays. I do have it behind me, but I haven't read it yet. And then there is Gorky on the Rafts. I haven't read anything from Gorky. I'm not huge on the Soviet realism era. But I know Gorky is very, very important in Russian literature, and I think maybe I should swallow my reservations and get into Gorky sometime soon. But anyway, this is really, really, really cool. And the thing I really like about Nabokov's lectures on literature in general is that he's not afraid at all of critique, and he's very forward. I mean, he says a lot of nasty stuff about Dostoevsky. I mean, not like horrible stuff, but he makes some very pointed critiques. I think you'll have a hard time finding a lot of prominent literary figures making. Well, that's probably not true, but at least someone like Nabokov, who I think is seen as a sort of modern literary giant. Like he's really unparalleled, has his own voice, um, touches on things culturally that is often neglected and seen as a bit of risque, but he discusses them artfully, with tact, with I think it's tactful. I think maybe not a lot of people would agree, but it's a sort of tact that impresses someone like me, I guess. I don't know, which means next to nothing. But anyway, someone who you really respect, and he takes that position, and he is not afraid to voice whatever controversial opinion that he may hold, right? I mean, someone in a position like that, you may be cautious about what you say, but he's not. He's secure in his position, and he knows that if people disagree with him, it is what it is. He has his own perspective as a human being, right? Like, he cannot be ultimately right all of the time because he writes very well and masterfully and has a grasp on things that maybe not most people do. And that doesn't mean he's superior or inferior in any way. It just means it is what it is. I think that's the essence of people in general. You need to stop granting these godhood titles because someone does something impressive. I mean, we are all capable of doing things impressive in different fields. Some things are very spectacularly impressive, but some things are very pragmatically impressive. Like the engineering of a bridge is not as maybe impressive as, let's say, a small bridge or whatever, something really practical, very industrial. Not as impressive as a light show or a magic show or whatever, but it serves a purpose. And we have people from different sectors contributing their opinions. It doesn't mean they're right, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just is something to put into the collective conversation and discuss. So that's why I really appreciate things like lectures on literature and different perspectives like that. It fascinates me to no end because we can explore things like themes and elements of and structures of literature while also offering critique on things that may be seen as untouchable. So I'm interested to see and grow my own understanding altogether of literature and be wrong. That's the thing. That's the thing is be wrong. That's the fun part of it, is to be wrong and incorrect and say something stupid and learn from your mistakes instead of just sort of trying to play safe. Anyway, that's all my books for the month of January. I really don't plan to get more. I hope not to be sucked into another book haul somewhere, but I don't know. We'll see. I didn't even plan to collect 30 more books this month at all. I maybe just like maybe a dozen, if that. But yeah. Anyway, that's all I have.